Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lori Gagan, and I am one of your hosts this evening from the Wellness Crusaders. Tonight, I am going to be joined by my colleague and dear friend, Suzanne Roth Paul. But before we get to her bio, what I would like to do is just read the information on our mission. The Wellness Crusaders internet radio show weaves together the critical and often overlooked aspects of wellness, including the crucial role of soil health. This engaging series unveils a crucial truth that the health of our soil is deeply intertwined with nutrition, climate, and the sustenance for life on Earth. For years, the rampant use of chemical farming methods has drastically depleted essential soil nutrients, leading to a decline in plant health and our overall well-being. These products emphasize that nutrient-rich, high-quality food is the foundation of our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. We address the critical issues of our diets being deficient in essential nutrients, a problem increasingly linked to the rising mental and physical health challenges. The Wellness Crusaders not only highlight these issues, but also provide answers and solutions. Upholding the wisdom of Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. We are committed to empowering lives, inspiring wellness, and offering solutions. And we hope you will join our crusade. And just a few disclaimers before we get started, that the listeners understand that the role of a health coach is not to prescribe or assess micro or macronutrients, to provide health care, medical or nutrition therapy services, or to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease, condition, or other physical or mental ailments of the body. Rather, the coach is a mentor and a guide who has been trained in holistic health coaching to help clients positive, sustainable lifestyle changes. The listener understands that we are not acting in the capacity of a doctor, a licensed dietitian, a licensed nutritionist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or any other licensed or registered professional, and that the advice given by the coach is not meant to take the place of advice by these professionals. If the listener is under the care of a healthcare professional or currently using any prescription medications, the client should discuss any dietary changes or potential dietary supplement use with his or her doctor and should never discontinue any prescription medication without first consulting his or her doctor. The listener understands that the information mentioned in our talks should not be seen as medical or nursing advice and is not meant to take the place of seeing licensed health professionals. Well, I'm excited once again to be interviewed my colleague, my dear friend, Suzanne Roth Paul. A little bit about Suzanne before I bring her into our talk today, a little bit about her bio. Suzanne Roth Paul is a certified primal health coach who considers herself a wellness warrior for women suffering needlessly at the hands of a broken medical system and food industry. She is the author of the ebook, Poisons in the Pantry, which we will also be talking about today on our show. Suzanne believes that good health starts in the kitchen, where you have control over what you eat and feed your family. But first, you must get what Suzanne calls the poisons in the pantry out of your kitchen before you can begin to heal or can prevent and avoid chronic illnesses that are rampant in today's world, like obesity, heart disease, autoimmune issues, and chronic and systemic inflammation. Today, we will be talking and discussing about the toxic seed oils that are on the rise, where it's profit over people's health. So I would like to welcome Suzanne into our talk this evening.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Suzanne.
Thanks for having me. This is always a pleasure talking to you because we both know how important ingredient reading is. And we're so passionate about our soil health. And this all impacts our soil health, everything we're going to be talking today, which then impacts our own body's health. So I'm
Right.
honored to be here with you today.
So, I know you were on last month and we talked about your ebook, Poisons in the Pantry. But for the listeners who are new to Main Street Media Utah, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you got started, and what led you to write your ebook, The Poisons in the Pantry.
Okay, so I basically am going to do like the short condensed version because we have a lot to cover today, and I want to make sure that we can get some questions answered if there are callers that want to come in and ask us some things. But basically, Lori, I wrote this book because it's what I wished I'd had 20 years ago in my early 40s. I'm now proud to say I'm 60, and I would never go back to those 40s again from what I've learned all these decades of education on what it means to be well. But I wrote this book because people just don't know this information. And I didn't know it when I was suffering with a host of hormonal issues in my late 40s, but they all started in my early 40s. But I've basically had chronic health issues most of my life from a hormonal imbalance, from toxic metals, and also just from environmental issues, but also from dietary. And so this book was just a birth of my education that I learned healing my own body. So the reason for this is because primarily that is the root cause of a lot of our health issues today, is this ingredients that we are now calling food, which is not food. It's chemically altered food. I call it zombie food because the goal is to make us zombies. So we just keep buying more and we become more and more addicted. And then it's this snowball effect of staying addicted to these harmful foods, which create a real domino effect of needing medications and surgeries. And so this book is all about you can heal yourself. Our bodies have the innate ability to heal themselves when given the opportunity. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is why these foods that you may be eating are causing most of your chronic issues. And simply by getting them out is the first step to healing. So that's where I kind of came from, the story of my own kind of tragic situation that I was suffering needlessly until I really started working with the right kind of specialist. But then all of this with the ebook was my own doing, because I realized I wasn't getting this information, and I was still eating foods that were harming me because of these insidious ingredients. And so this is a simple, easy to read book, and it's affordable, it's fast read, and you can take your own health in your own hands when you start with this ebook. So I'm very honored to have
I can't wait to let the listeners know how they can get it. But, a quick note to the listeners, you yourself as a child, you were very sick. Mm-hmm. And so you have overcome the illnesses that you had as a child, that you took into the teenagehood, into your young adulthood, until you yourself became a mother and started also doing the research on how toxic, I like to say that a lot of the soil is no longer soil, it's dirt, because it doesn't contain the nutrients that it once did back probably when my great grandparents were alive. But you went on to do the research where you were actually able to heal yourself. And so can you just really quick, when the light bulb went on for you, how old were you?
47.
And how long did it take you to really wake up that it was the food that was making you not feel well?
Well, I kind of knew that at the beginning when I was diagnosed with all these, particular food intolerances, like wheat and dairy and corn and soy and obviously sugar. But it didn't register until probably 7 or 8 years later. Fast forward, and I ended up having this terrible rash on my face that I couldn't get rid of, and I was like, oh my God, I'm doing all the right things. I'm eating well. I'm reading ingredients. I'm teaching people how to do all of this. How can I have this rash on my face where I look like a raging teenager and raging hormonal imbalances on my with my skin? And I had to come, nobody could help me. The dermatologist wanted to give me antibiotics, which is one of the things that caused me so much trouble in my youth. Because I did antibiotics in my 20s and into my 30s for the same kind of cystic acne issues on my skin.
Right.
So what happened was I realized that we weren't dealing with the toxins in my body, because at 47, I was diagnosed with heavy metals. I had high mercury, arsenic, lead, all of these things that the only time, Lori, back in when I was 47, that's been, 20 years ago, that I, is that right? No, 10 years ago, is that the only thing was available was chelation, a really dangerous chelation
Right.
and it was like $100. It was some sort of pills, and it was like $100, and it sat in my cabinet because I knew that I shouldn't be taking that. I knew it was wrong, but that's all the solutions that were out there besides pumping me full of supplements. Well, because my stomach was a wreck, and because I had another condition you and I discovered when I went to the Amen Clinic and they did some lab testing on me, a urine test, we determined why I was having so many health issues, and especially with my brain, and brain fog, exhaustion, anxiety, things of that nature that would always peak when I had high stress levels. And we all have high stress levels, but our body innately is supposed to be able to handle that, but not when it's burdened with toxins.
Right.
And so when I had the skin rash, I thought, oh my God, we never dealt with the toxic metals in my body. So fast forward, finding out more details, looking into what I could do to get the toxins out of my body, like getting the mercury out of my teeth, and really looking more closely at what my gut was telling me, which is certain foods harboring issues, really zoning in on ingredients and knowing that I was still eating crap. I was still eating a lot of stuff that wasn't good for me. And then that's when it was a door opener, and I started finding ways to heal. And those modalities are another conversation I'm happy to talk about, but it did take, it took another 3 years before I was able to get rid of the rash and really clear it up. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started because, like you said, we have a lot to cover. So we're actually going to be talking about seed oils today and how toxic they are. And honestly, we could talk about the seed oils and the rise in obesity right now. But there are so many people who really don't understand why seed oils are so toxic. They see something like an avocado oil, even though it has the word organic on it, it has the word non-GMO on it, and they assume that these oils are safe. Um, and I guess the thing I it, that I'm trying to figure out on my end too, besides for getting your ebook out there,
Mhm.
how are we going to reach these people? Because we walk through the grocery stores and we see what's in the cart. And then I feel when I strike up a conversation that I'm ambushing them, but I'm really just there to educate them. So let's go ahead and I know you put some really good, some comments together, but let's just start off on why you feel that these industrial seed oils are so toxic to the human body, and all intervene when it comes to talking about how toxic they are to the brain.
Yeah, brain and body connection's huge. So first, I just want to show the book that has been my Bible for my ebooks. Can you see this all right? This is
It's, you know what, it is reversed. We could have you go into the gear shifter at the bottom, talk about deep nutrition. That's
well,
the name of the book. We can just talk about the book. It's probably
I thought that
easier.
I had reversed, did the mirror reverse.
Yeah,
I thought it was
yeah.
okay. So it's still the other way was backwards. All right. Well, anyway, Dr. Kate Shanahan, I'm going to be quoting a lot of her research.
I
And this book,
love
I just
that.
highly recommend this book. It's phenomenal read. She's very entertaining. She makes it like it's a story of information. And so I'm going to be really discussing why she calls cause the development of these seed oils as really the disaster of the 20th century. I mean, this started, with the industrial revolution kind of started a lot of this. And what happened was, I just, very quickly say that it all started with cottonseed oil, because the fabric industry had all of this had all this cotton, and they had all this excess seeds. And evidently there were piles and piles and piles of these seeds that were sitting there fermenting. And they realized it had something to do with the magic mix of oxygen that caused these seed oils, the seeds, to oxygenate. And then became this relationship between the farmers, the big pharmaceutical, not really pharmaceuticals, the petroleum companies.
Yes.
And that those two got together, chemists, farmers, and petroleum companies, and said, hey, we've got a byproduct here that we can use, and we can turn it into an oil, and we can sell it, and we can put it in all kinds of junk. So if you go back to, I'm 60, if I go back to when I was a young girl, I'm 10 to 12, in that range, and I was going to all of the convenience stores, Maverick Market, 7-Elevens, all those junk food places, and taking wads of money that, remember, like quarters would buy like 10 pieces of candy, all these different things. Pennies would buy candy. We would go down there, my cousins and I, when we were visiting outside of where I lived, and we would go and buy all this candy. Well, I remember cottonseed oil was really popular in all that junk food. Now, if you go back and do the research, and Dr. Shanahan talks about this, it morphed into it was in junk food, then it morphed into dog food and animal and pet food. I don't know if you're aware of this, but she does a really great analogy about the foods we're eating today are not that much different than pet food, because they're taking those same ingredients and adding in seed oils, simple carbohydrates like your flours and your sugar, and seed oil, simple carbohydrates or flours and all kinds of other things that are just heavily processed. And then you throw in sugar, and bingo, you've got this really dangerous, harmful product that together rots our teeth. It causes vascular issues. It messes up the brain. And what Kate and what I was wanting to talk about with regard to her is she mentions how seed oils are one dangerous thing, but then you mix it with sugar, which those two things are a good marriage couple. They're in all of the foods that are toxic.
Well, and look how addicting sugar is. I mean, it's like cocaine. It is
a
super
legal
addicting
form of cocaine.
Yes.
And one of the things that she says is that the difference of cocaine is it's illegal. And we know that we can't get, we get to it, it's going to be from illegal forms, and it's pretty toxic and dangerous and can kill you almost immediately if you take too much of it. Well, sugar is benign. Sugar is one of those insidious ingredients. It's legal. You can go to the grocery store and buy it, and it's got all those hidden disorders that are really, like I said, insidious. You don't know about it until it's way too late. So it's affecting so many things, and combined with seed oils, it's a perfect storm for all of these chronic health issues we're having. And she claims that it is the reason behind the high cholesterol issues that we're screaming about, the heart disease, the cancers. All of those things are stemming back to these seed oils and simple carbs and sugar.
And then you take a look at, when they put profits over health. I mean, the seed oil, it's over $100 billion. That's what it is. I mean, that's the amount of profits that they're making. Yeah. So at $100 billion, I mean, heck, at $100,000, I mean, obviously they're more interested in, all the profit. $100,000 is a lot of money, let alone $100 billion.
Yes. And the problem with that is that it is in everything. And so the food industry, there's a big argument that this is conspiracy, or we're just up here trying to bash big industry. And I'm saying, well, conspiracy lately seems to me that if you don't want to believe this stuff, you're going to call it conspiracy. And you don't want to hear it. Put your fingers in your ears and say, I don't want to hear this nonsense. But the problem with it is definitely that, let's talk about the industry, profit over people, and we're using these foods. Well, if the FDA is supposed to be the guard dog, they are basically the fox guarding the hen house, because they're getting paid off. I don't know that. I mean, I'm saying this. We assume that there's a lot of connection here with payouts, and we know our government's pretty messed up with in terms of politicians taking payment for things that are obviously harming us. Why else would these foods be allowed, Lori, if they were not being ignored by our FDA? They
Right.
know this. And my ebook goes into the detail. I simplify it. It's only 20 pages, but really 16 of it is really more of the details. I explain why, because they don't want us to know this, because it's making a lot of money for big pharma. The more sick you are, the longer we
Right.
can keep you alive, the more we can suck you dry. The more sick you are, the longer, well, we're not living longer, we're dying longer.
Right.
And my mother used to laugh about her and insatiable appetite for junk food. She was a chocoholic, and so she would go with all of the kind of sweets and stuff that had chocolate in them. And she'd say, "Oh, don't worry about me, Suzanne. There's so many preservatives in this. I'm going to live forever." Well, the funny thing was, she wasn't that far off. She did live a lot longer than she should have, because she was a chronic smoker. And she was a little bit of an oxymoron, because I grew up with, anybody who's listened to any of my talks about my father, who just celebrated his 100th birthday, by the way.
Oh, that I know, it's so awesome.
I
Happy
have a
birthday to your
Happy
dad.
birthday, Dad. He turned 100 April 4th, and I was in Texas. And this brought me to the subject about obesity, because in the South Texas, the weight that I'm seeing on people is astronomical. And I want to also talk about why is this weight on people? It's not just because they're sitting around eating a bag of chips. Surely chips aren't putting all this weight on you. No, it's much more insidious than that. But we had a garden, and I grew up eating yummy vegetables, even though I didn't like them. I have to admit, spaghetti squash and kohlrabi and okra, all those weird things I was kind of force fed to eat. But Mom ate those things too, so it balanced her out. But because she was so unhealthy, she ended up with chronic heart failure in the end. And yeah, she lived longer, but it was miserable. It was a miserable death.
How old was she when she passed?
She passed at 83, but in her late 70s, mid 70s is when she started having all of her health issues.
And I
Because
mean, even 83 is fairly young. I mean, it's not
it
like,
is now. It is
yes,
now. She
it
died
is.
12 years ago, and for her age, she should have died. I mean, I don't mean any disrespect to my mother, but my father kept her alive, because the heart surgeon came in and said, "You know what? If we don't do this open heart surgery on you, Mrs. Roth, you're going to die." Well, guess what? She needed to die. So what they did is they gave her the open heart surgery. So she spent 3 years, Lori, 3 long years recovering from the open heart surgery, just to die. And when
Yes.
she went into a nursing home, broke her hip, and laid in bed for 6 months. We had to watch her lay in bed, and just, she was a vegetable. She couldn't do anything. And
And
that's
that is just an example of what we call living short and dying long, meaning that you're
absolutely
living a healthy short life, but you're dying a healthy sick life.
awful.
And people just aren't making the connections, because they just don't know. And they don't, I mean, listen, we have thousands of hours in getting ourselves certified in
Right.
holistic health coaches, in the research. We know that the average person does not have that time. That's why what we do is so important, because we've already invested that time to help educate them.
Yeah,
And
and
that's our goal.
I like to say I was a guinea pig of all this food and medication. Okay. So use me as an example to how not to do it and what I've done to turn it around. And so, what's interesting about this whole industrial seed oil is that, we say that diet is a cause or a cure, Lori. We know that your diet is such a big start, and we can go for hours on just talking about nutrition. But don't forget, when we're talking about these seed oils, we're talking about corn, we're talking about soy, we're talking about wheat, we're talking about, sugar is a farmed product. But what is so insidious about these seed oils, Lori, is look at the amount of farmland that's being raped and ruined to grow these foods, because most of them are genetically modified most of
Right.
these foods are genetically modified to begin with. They're just, and I learned from my father, you had to rotate your crops all the time. You couldn't grow the same thing on top of them every year. Well, we're seeing the repetitiveness, because fertilizers are saving the day. Toxic pesticides are saving the day. Those things are all going into our soil. And Lori and I go back. If the soil is not healthy, our bodies cannot be healthy. The foods we're eating cannot be assimilated nutritionally and digested, because it's full of toxins or
Right.
it's depleted.
So let's step back just a few sentences. You mentioned genetically modified organisms or GMOs. For our listeners who have never seen it and maybe you're not paying attention to the ingredients, GMO foods, the seed has been modified with a herbicide like Roundup to resist the farmers who are using dangerous toxic herbicides. So they're using it to resist when the farmers spray. So you're kind of getting a double whammy. You're eating a genetically modified seed that's growing into a plant. Let's just say wheat, soy, you were talking about soy. So that the farmers come and they spray those toxic chemicals. It doesn't kill the plant, but it will kill the weeds. So it's a double whammy. And then we take a look at the uprise in autoimmune disease. So I'm sorry, I wanted to clarify GMO for our listeners who have never heard the word GMO
Absolutely.
before. So thank you for allowing me to interject there.
Oh, of course, Lori. You and I we're both knowledgeable about both these things. So I want you to contribute and help. And you go deeper than I do on some of these levels I'll touch on. But the main thing is we're talking about soybean oil. Or soy and soybean oil. We're talking about corn and corn oil. We're talking about wheat and wheat additives, hydrolyzed wheat. I just looked that up, and it's in a lot of these ingredients I'll talk about, or that's in some of this food that I brought to show. And basically, it just means it's heavily processed so that it for flavor enhancing. And
So wait a minute. Are you saying that not only is conventional grown wheat that we're going to find in the list of ingredients out at restaurants, but now they're like it's hydrolyzed wheat
they've
that
got
is even
heavily processed, wheat and soy lecithin is another thing, is
yes.
used as a food, like helps make things makes things smooth, like your chocolate bars. They need to be smooth. Remember, we have an industry of processed foods. Well, guess what? They have to make sure they have a shelf life. So at the expense of our health, those products are lasting longer, but they're killing us faster. So you've got all of these
like a McDonald's French fry. I mean,
Oh my
25
God.
years later, they
Well,
still look like a regular French fry.
well, let's talk about the fact that Twinkies, for instance, that can stay on the shelves for decades.
Yeah.
And Twinkies is just, everybody knows they're a piece of crap. But if you go look at their ingredients, a lot of that stuff in there is in all of the cereals that everybody's eating, the granolas, all of the processed crackers and sweets. And, I just came back from South Texas, and HEB is a massive store. It's like going into a Costco or Safeway. And I will tell you, this is hilarious. I'm looking for Siete corn chips. Now they're okay. They're using cassava flour, and they're not corn. They're basically an alternative using cassava flour, and
which is potato, by the way, for the listeners who don't know what cassava is.
Is it potato? I thought it was a different. No, I thought it was better than potato of the start. But anyway, I'm
a cleaner version of a good potato.
Yeah, it doesn't have the glycemic index, I think, of potato. But the point of it is, I'm looking for it, and they have all the chip aisle, and they have everything there, and they have a few Siete products, but they don't have the corn chips. They have, I think, her potato chips. So I'm going, where are the corn chips? And he says, oh, we have a section up front that's called the health food section. And I'm going, oh, isn't that interesting? Then what do you call the rest of the crap that you have on the store? It's not health food. It's not good food. And he looks at me like with his mouth wide open, like, I don't know where this lady's coming from, but what are you talking about? So I go up to where this little section is that's in the front of the store that has some of the healthier options that I buy, including, Lori, vitamins. So there's a section that's probably about 5 feet wide and about, maybe a foot to 2 feet high that has healthier versions of vitamins. So I go look at those, and I'm going, oh, that's interesting. They only have like 2 small rows. I go over to the vitamin department in HEB, and it's an aisle that's 10 feet or 15 feet long, and it's floor to ceiling of supplements. Everything from vitamin C to vitamin D to energy powders. Every single one of those have insidious ingredients in there that I put in my poisons in the pantry to look out for when you're buying.
Wow.
Row after row after row of this stuff. I pick it up, I put it down. I pick it up, I put it down. So
and people don't know because they're not reading the ingredients. nor do they really have an idea of what we're talking about, which then goes back to the fact that that's why we're here, is to educate them.
Yeah, and I think the number one oil, I mean, I'm just going to show an example. This is a salad dressing. Now, condiments are what I got started with because I'm a certified primal health coach, and Primal Kitchen Foods are one of the cleanest products you can buy that Mark Sisson, who was a health guru, created a decade or longer ago. Anyway, this was a product that I used to buy like in my 40s because a friend of mine loved it.
I
So
see it.
it's called Brianna's Organic Salad Dressing, Poppy Seed. And the number one ingredient, despite the fact that now Primal Kitchen is getting the word out, all of these mayonnaises and mustards, I had a hard time finding mayonnaise today at Whole Foods that was really it was not good ingredients. This is one. This is a bad one. I'm only showing bad stuff today because I just want to compare and show you a few things. Anyway, here's Brianna's. It's way up at the top. You have to remember how they place things on shelving has to do with the products that sell the most. So the most toxic foods are always at the eye level. And that if you're looking at, typical HEBs and Safeways and Albertsons and all those grocery stores.
Right.
And so anyway, I pulled this out, and number one ingredient is organic. Hello, it says organic, so it's got to be healthy, right? That's what I get all the time. If it's organic and gluten-free, isn't that healthy, Suzanne? I'm like, no. Marketing bullshit again. It's just all marketing. So number one ingredient is organic canola oil. Number two is organic cane sugar. Okay, the top 2 or 3 ingredients on any product is your most heavily used ingredient in this.
Well,
product.
and we go back to the cane sugar. What? Addicting like cocaine.
Yes, and when you're making dressings, I make homemade dressings all the time. Oil, vinegar, a little bit of mustard, maybe a little bit of balsamic, put in some cilantro, put in some basil, whip it all up in your blender. Delicious. A little salt, maybe some lemon juice, a little bit of vinegar. There's no sugar in that. I never need sugar. Who needs sugar? It's already tasty without it. Third ingredient, and then also a lot of xanthan gum. We talk a lot about gums. Now, when you think about gums, it's gumming up your system. Just remember, xanthan gum, not xylitol, xanthan gum, guar gum, all of those, they were in all the gluten-free foods when I started my gluten-free journey, and I was still not doing well. My skin was still breaking out. I still had stomach issues. Well, I learned that, there were a few, 12 years ago that were on the shelves, and they were all corn-based, which is even worse. And because corn is genetically modified, it's one of the most heavily pesticides and sprayed and GMO'd foods in the market. We haven't even talked about not GMO'd, glyphosate sprayed. And so what we're talking about here, Lori, is these things. This I love to use spray for oil sprays, and this is a canola oil spray. And what's so funny about it? It just says organic, exfoliar pressed, refined canola oil. So people still think canola oil is safe. This is a seed oil that's really toxic. And what's interesting is because it's organic and exfoliar pressed, people think that it is safer than regular expressed seed oils. Well, no, all it's doing is it's not using a lot of they're not using other products to express it, which is toxins. And Kate Shanahan mentions it. They're using different, scent. They use all kinds of they even have to put perfumes and fragrances in this stuff because these seed oils are so toxic smelling. I mean, you gotta read this stuff to believe it. And I'm telling you, she goes into deep nutrition. She goes into it really deeply so you can understand it.
And you know what? It goes back to when people see the word organic, they feel that it's safe because they're not doing the research. I just watched today, prepping for the show, how seed oils are made. And by the time they expel it and they press it down, there's no nutritional value in anything like that.
And also, you're absolutely right. It's lost all of its nutritional anything. Even if the seed oils were, which they're not, by the time it gets to the shelf, Lori, and looks like that bottle that you have shown up of that vegetable oil, do you ever notice that it's in plastic, number one?
Yeah.
And number two, it's light colored and it's not protected from the light, like olive oil and avocado oils and some of the other precious oils need to be. You notice they're always in darker bottles. That's because by the time they get to your shelf, they're already rancid.
Right.
They're already toxic.
And you
they
have no
don't-
idea how long they've been, like how it got from who was ever manufacturing it. Then you've got to throw it on a semi. And what kind of heat exposure did they go to? How
Right.
long was it sitting there? And then it's going to be on the shelves. And yes, they give the expiration date, but I don't know. I don't even trust expiration dates anymore.
No, and I'm also saying, if anything's in a bottle that has fat content in it, it needs to be in glass because the plastic is absorbing into your food as well. And
Right.
I'm just going to touch on one more thing. So this is organic, Whole Foods organic crunchy peanut butter. And I'm bringing up some of these things because this is what kids love to eat. Ranch dressings, they love mayonnaise on stuff. So we're feeding our children this. And
Oh my gosh. And that Whole Foods, that organic peanut butter.
Well, no, what I was going to say is it's got number one on here. It has roasted peanuts, and peanuts are an
Yes.
allergen, you guys, and they have mold in them. My husband was reading because he loves peanut butter, a Valencia peanut butter, Valencia nuts. It's probably somebody who grows Valencia nuts and saying, "Oh no, our nuts are safe." Anyway, I was told in my early 40s to not eat peanut butter because it has a mold in it that you cannot get rid of. And for people that have issues like I do, most of us all, it's not good for anybody who wants to eat something that's moldy. It has on here the number two thing is expel your pressed palm oil. So what I think they're now trying, the word is out, Lori, that canola oil and sunflower and safflower still, everybody's debating that, but and Kate doesn't. She says it's still it's still pressed. You cannot get an oil out of a seed without serious extraction and chemicals to do that. So think about it. So she's saying, no, it's all bad. And so the point of it is that palm oil has an okay reputation. I learned that a while ago. But unfortunately, where it's processed and what they're doing to the land, all these tropical lands, they are raping all this. Again, I use that term because it really is raping the environment. They're taking all the tropical plants out that we need for our earth to breathe and to have oxygen and to give us life. And they're growing all of this palm oil. And so even if it's not organic, even if it is organic, it's still damaging the soil and damaging our agriculture, and our resources are being depleted. And it's all going into crap, Lori. This is all going into food that's harming us. That's
Right.
what makes me so upset, is saying, people, you need to know this. This is your earth. This is your life. This is your children. This is your future. And we have gotten so far away from our ancestors, it is beyond comprehension.
And they make it really cheap.
Okay, yes.
For people to buy, for families, for single moms and single dads and the elderly, the people that had to come out of retirement because of where our economy is right now, they're all searching for a deal. Like, I don't want to say what's the cheapest product, but what's the most cost-effective products that they can buy, that they can feed a family of just say 4. Utah, it's sometimes a family of 8 or 9 or 10. But how do you feed a family now on such a tight budget? They end up going to these products.
They're convenient because it's convenient.
Exactly.
But they weren't there when we were growing up. What did my dad do?
They weren't.
My dad was a blue collar worker. He knew that he was a child of the Depression. He's 100 years old, for God's sakes. He knew what it was like to starve. And he said, I will never starve again. I will never let that happen to my family. Well, we've got a gluttonous society. If you look around, that obesity is 60% of the population is obese. And I think it's something like 40% is obese, and then 20% is severely obese. So basically you've got 60% of the population.
And that's about what it is. But you don't think Ozempic is the cure for obesity? Just kidding. That's another talk for us.
Do not get me started on Oprah Winfrey on that one. Well, I think that the sad thing is again, somebody's in bed with Big Pharma, and that this is not, the product is made. Didn't you say the product is made over in Europe, and they're not even allowing it on the shelves?
No, they won't. The U.S. is the biggest importer of that Big Pharma medicine, Ozempic. And that just kind of goes back to what you and I do. I mean, you have your ebook, Poison is in the Pantry. It's talking about root cause. What is the root cause of disease? Clearly, Big Pharma is not the answer. or there would be no obesity. There would be no mental illness. There would be, like, I mean, look at the suicide rates. And then I
Absolutely.
often wonder, what are these teenagers eating? And what is it that we can do to help educate their parents? But it goes back to your ebook, Poisons in the Pantry, and how important it is. It's a simple read, just like they don't have to spend years of doing research.
Mhm.
They have that book right there. And that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, but I'm surprised to tell you how many people, my own family doesn't even pay attention to it. I'm like, I'm looking at their ingredients that they're buying, and I'm like, you need to go back to step one and read my ingredients list again. That's what, because they forget. But we're so hyper sensitive to it, Lori, because we've had our own health issues and we've got clients that are suffering. And so we are, we're engrossed in this world of wellness, which is good, but it's also hard for us to do it alone. And what I'm
Right.
encouraging people to do is, if you're listening to this conversation that Lori and I are having and you're willing to get the ebook, get it to as many people as talk to as many people as start reading ingredients and figuring it out. You can Google half this stuff. It's most of your ingredients are Googleable. And
Right.
Lori and I really like Environmental Working Group, EWG. Yeah.
And I'm gonna add something that you said. So when we start talking about foods with our family, we have children who are grown adults. They look at us like we're conspiracy theorists, like, oh, there's no science on there. And they quickly go, because you said go Google it. But we already know that Google is deleting stuff and rewriting stuff, and Wikipedia. Anybody has the ability to go into Wikipedia and write their own stuff and edit it. But I'm going to be honest, I don't trust Dr. Google. I may go there to do, hey, what is hexanine, which we'll talk about because I know it's, one of the ingredients in the oil. But I go further. I go to places like PubMed. Why? Because you can't trust Dr. Google. You just can't. You couldn't trust someone, when the shot came out. I don't trust them now. But sorry, I just wanted to say that because you did mention that.
A good point. And when you have my ingredient list or you start looking at ingredients, all you need to do is go and Google the ingredient and it will tell you what it is.
Yes.
Now, sometimes it says that the FDA approves in low doses, it's okay. Well, the joke is none of this is in low doses. And if you're eating processed food, morning, lunch, and dinner, and you're eating at restaurants, don't forget restaurants. They are not using avocado oil, olive oil, butter, and ghee. You can ask for it, but they kind of smirk at you. I'm able to get it. But don't forget, those ingredients cost more money. And so here's what I say about budget. We have an excess society day today of not only gluttony, but of choice. But if all those choices went away, and you had nothing but healthy foods to pick, first of all, you're going to eat less of them because you'll be satiated. Let me just mention here, man-made seed oils. This is from Dr. Shanahan. They starve the body and the brain. And we're talking about man-made seed oils, but I'm talking about all these other ingredients: sugar, wheat, dairy, corn, soy, all these fake ingredients and these zombie foods. The brain needs 20% of caloric nutrients a day to thrive. Now, our brain, Lori, is the fattest organ in the body. And it's that way for a reason. And you can delve on this a little bit more, but our brain is full of fat. It needs healthy fats. Well, when the industry came out with fat was bad, and that's what's causing all of our heart disease. So they nixate all of the good butters and the healthy creams and the healthy dairy products.
Yes. Yep.
That all of a sudden now we've all shifted over, and it's taken decades to get to this, Lori. Decades of generations too, and generations of eating this stuff, which then your genetic makeup gets used to these ingredients, and you're either going to come out affected by it or you're going to get sick. And so she's talking about how that we need fat to function in our brain. We need our brain to thrive. We need healthy fats. And it's also the place that we store the most toxins.
Oh, so let me interject on that because you just said that.
Well, let me finish. So
Okay.
if you are thin and you don't have a lot of fat on you, guess where your toxins are going to store?
In the fats.
In your brain.
Yes.
That was my issue. I don't have a lot of body fat. My husband doesn't have a lot of body fat. My son doesn't have a lot of body fat. their brains are getting bombarded with any toxins that they're eating, which they love to eat out at restaurants and eat sugary things. So that's a big issue. And I want to emphasize that when you see somebody who's 300 pounds, Lori, I just finished a book called Hunger. You need to read it. Anybody out there needs to read this book. It's by an amazing young woman. I don't know what her age is now, about her obesity issues. And it really changed my perspective on things. But let's say she's 300 pounds. That is not from eating too many chips and too many French fries. That's from eating seed oils. That's from eating sugar. That's from eating toxic chemicals. Your body doesn't know what to do with all of that. So it stores it in your fat cells. And
let alone being sedentary, doing a lot of sitting in front of a computer.
Well, which
TV.
Came first, the chicken or the egg, because
yes.
you sit a lot, so you snack a lot, so you get bigger and bigger, and you become more sluggish, more brain fogged, it's basically zombie food, you guys. It's creating a bunch, we call them sheeples now. That's the new word. Create sheeples, and we don't cause any problems. We just do the status quo. We keep eating this crap. We keep feeding the medical profession by having surgeries and going and getting getting medications. It's this vicious cycle that Lori and I are trying to introduce to everybody to say, it's time to wake up. You can do it, and you can lose that weight, and you can get your health back, but you got to do it now. You can't wait anymore.
So let's back up a few minutes to the brain and what you said with Dr. Shanahan, and her book is on my vacation reading materials next month.
You'll enjoy it.
Yeah. So anyway, so the brain, for those of our listeners who don't know, your brain is roughly 66% fat. And so our brains consume roughly 33% of all the calories that we eat, but 100% of all the toxins. Because we go back to the brain being 66% fat, and toxins, poisons like glyphosate that are hidden in these foods. You go to the restaurant, people aren't asking the right questions. Is it certified gluten-free? I'll just give you a quick example. There is a barbecue place that I like in Salt Lake City, and I called them the other day and I said, hey, is the turkey, the smoked turkey, is it organic? Do you know what the farmer is feeding them? And the guy's like, wow, nobody's ever asked me. I know it's gluten-free. But how do you know if it's gluten-free if the turkeys are eating corn that has been sprayed with the antibiotics? But brain is 66% fat. Your brain consumes 33% of the calories, 100% of the toxins. And so when I'm working and I'm coaching with people that maybe smoke marijuana, as an example. So where do these poisons inside the marijuana, because they're also being sprayed with these deadly herbicides and poisons and pesticides. And I say the word deadly because of all of the guilty verdicts against Bayer, formerly Monsanto, the latest one being $2 billion. So your brain's 66% fat. Where do we think that these poisons are being stored? Because we know that marijuana crosses the blood-brain barrier, because that's what produces the high that people get, whether it's a good high or a bad high. But all of those poisons that are in these, I want to say these herbal drugs, things like psychedelic mushrooms. I'm actually going to be interviewing somebody on Monday on ketamine, which is also a psychedelic. Marijuana, as an example, fentanyl. But those poisons get lodged in the tissue of the brain. And then we look at the uptick in anxiety. I hate that word. We look at the uptick in depression. I hate that word because I feel that those are two words right now that conventional medicine doctors or psychiatrists that don't understand brain spec never end up going back to school to learn anymore. They label these, and I'm going to talk about teenagers in this example. They label these teenagers where they're anxious, they're depressed, they have PTSD. So these kids walk out like with this label, and look at the uptick in suicide. Utah right now almost has, in all of 50 states, we are one of the top 5 states in suicide right now.
Oh no.
So, but then we go back to how are these kids eating? They're eating all the crap seed oils. Why? Because they're going to Burger King. They're going to toxic McDonald's. They're going to Subway. Sorry about that, Leighton. I know you like Subway, but it is still poison. All of these fast food restaurants, and you see them popping up in every town, in
Ah,
every
everywhere,
town.
everywhere.
Why? Because people love to eat and they want to eat now and they don't want to cook.
And they're
Anyway,
addicted. They're addicted.
yes, it is. So then we look at the rise in all of these autoimmune disorders, all of these mental health issues.
Right.
So then what do? You go in there and you're labeled with anxiety, depression, could be from the seed oils or all of the other poisons that you spell out in your ebook, Poisons in the Pantry. But here is a big pharma anxiety medicine. You're just anxious. Well, then you're sad, then you're unfocused, and let's put you on something that's going to, cause your dopamine, like a Ritalin. And people are now living on,
Yeah, medication.
5 to 10 medications a day.
And they're young, Lori. They're in
know.
their 20s. I'm talking to a client right now whose daughter is already prescribed. She didn't want to do it, but what did the psychiatrist or therapist tell her? Well, that's all we have to offer, so might as well. Oh, and don't forget, insurance is covering it, Lori.
Yes.
She's not
Yes.
interested in my stem cell activating patches that are mood stabilizing. We call it two things about that. The brain, it's a brain, Daniel Amen calls it a brain injury. It is not, and PTSD is now post-traumatic stress injury. They're trying to get rid of the disorder because it's not a disorder and it's not a dysfunction and you're not broken. It's an injury. And
Right.
so the problem with this is we know medicine needs to label it so that they can obviously call it something and label you, and they can make a drug for it.
Right.
So they don't have a name, they can't drug it. And so I'm battling with this industry right now where insurance is covering medication, but they're not helping us with functional medicine doctors.
Right.
Go and talk. Nobody ever asked.
Or even supplements or amino acids. So do you feel, Suzanne, that the population has been duped? I know you have that.
Yeah. Well, we are trading good health and ancestral health for our good healthy fats for chemicals. So we have been duped and we've been addicted. We've been trained by decades of eating this way. Now, remember, we have generations of people that have been eating this way, Lori, because we do have an economy that's imbalanced. So all of the cheap food is going into all of the poor neighborhoods. You do know that like a 7-Eleven in my neighborhood is going to have one price on some products that they'll have differently in, say, a more, repressed area, that the food is sodas, for instance, Coca-Colas. I could scream right now on my trip from San Francisco to Corpus Christi down to Dallas to Corpus Christi, all the way to Mexico City. I went to San Miguel, Mexico recently, and I'm happy to say I didn't see a lot of obesity in San Miguel. But the point was, on the airplane, Lori, everybody is drinking Coke Zero.
Because the airlines offer that toxic shit. I'm sorry.
I don't drink it. I'm not drinking it. And I'm like going, hold on. Do you not know that you're drinking formaldehyde? You are drinking chemicals. This is direct. And every one of them, Lori, were obese. Everybody had a stomach. Everybody had arms that were, some people's arms are bigger than my legs. And this isn't actually a criticism. This is an observation that is breaking my heart. It's like, how can I reach these people? How do you talk to them and say, excuse me, please, do you know what you're eating and drinking is?
Because we have the solution. So we're so passionate that when we see that, we want to help, but sometimes we just don't know how.
Oh no, and I'm told it's not our place. It's not our business. It's like, excuse me, okay.
Tax dollars.
Excuse me. It's not our place to tell people that this is not only harming them, but it's harming their families. If you're addicted to those things, I was with a mother who smoked all her life and was addicted. And I've got another good book you're going to have to read, and it's all on the propaganda that back in the 60s when I was a baby and my mother was young, the propaganda to get people to smoke was, if you smoke, pick a cigarette over a sugar item and you'll stay thin.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
God, I'm going. And my
Ugh.
mother said the same thing. I said, Mom, whatever got you started on smoking? And she said, it was a celebrity thing. All of the celebrities, all of the Hollywood, they were all smoking. And half of those people are dead now because of cancers and cigarette and lung disease. But anyway, this is the point is how do we, I mean, I would love callers to call in or people to.
Yes, yes. So let's, Leighton, can you put that number up for the callers to call in? You can either call us or you can send us an email right now at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. I'll give you the phone number here in a quick second. The phone number is for anyone who wants to ask questions. It's 385-899-2134. Again, 385-899-2134. But Suzanne, so you have here in your comments, nature doesn't make bad fats, factories do. Tell us a little bit about that.
So this is talking about going back to our seed oils that are manufactured, and that is where a lot of these health issues come from. And if you go back to what our ancestors were eating that were healthy were good animal fats and good vegetables and fats. Even if you're vegetarian, you know, there is fats in certain vegetables and there are certain things you can get to supplement that. Don't even, and that's a whole nother conversation about vegan and vegetarian food. Oh my goodness, those ingredients are deadly that everybody's substituting. But
And I'll add, there's no amino acids there. You can't feed your brain. It's harder to feed your brain when you're a vegan.
Yeah.
And you really can't like live on nuts because of the oxalates that could crystallize in the kidney. And it's a tad bit easier when you're a vegetarian because at least vegetarians are eating eggs and hopefully they're organic, cage-free, range-free eggs.
Well, that's another conversation is it's not the quantity of these foods, Lori, it's the quality. So your chickens need to be raised properly, your beef, everybody's got this big issue as meat is a cholesterol bomb and that it's killing us. And it's like, no. It's first of all, the amount of meat you're eating. And second of all, it's the quality of meat you're eating. So if you're eating at McDonald's all the way up to a high-end restaurant, where are they sourcing this animal? And is it clean? And is it healthy? And was it raised properly? Because these animals, it's called industrial factories. I know I got off the subject here about
That's
it.
Okay.
It's like if nature doesn't make if nature doesn't make bad fats, what does? And that's man-made chemicals. Again, we've got chemists in our kitchens and not nutritionists. And so
good points, by the way.
Yeah, that's where this all started. Remember, go back that the seed oil started by chemists and petroleum companies getting together to figure out what to do with byproducts, you guys, byproducts of an industry. Hexane is a gasoline that is used to extract these seed oils. So trust me when I say you do not want to be eating these. And don't forget, Lori, spoiler alert, seed oils like canola, sunflower, corn, all of those, they should not be cooked at high heat. They're already bad. And so then if you want to talk a little about a bit about PUFAs, polyunsaturated fat, PUFAs are, Shanahan goes into that exorbitantly here in why they're so dangerous. And so we're frying all this food and we're eating it like it is, gold. And all the fried, think about it, the fried chicken, the hamburgers fried, even the meat, it's sizzling and searing on probably bad ingredients and bad toxic skillets. I mean, that's another thing.
So talk about one of the ingredients that you've added to your new ebook, acrylamide?
Acrylamide. Acrylamide was something I just discovered when I was offering a cracker. Mary's Gone Crackers. Sorry, Mary, if you're listening to this, you need to get your shit together and work on this with your foods. Mary's Gone Crackers is a gluten-free cracker. And for some reason, a couple years ago, it was all that was out 10 years ago. And I didn't like the flavor. I never was crazy about them, but she's got new ones out. And they actually, funny enough, they start to taste better. And I notice I can't stop eating them. I'm like, wow, this is dangerous. I'm in them all the time. And so is my husband. Well, I'm introducing it to somebody and I offered him some and he said, ooh, I think my girlfriend tells me he was a doctor. She goes, I think my girlfriend says I'm not supposed to eat those. And turns out they have a sheen on the outside that looks like plastic. Well,
I ate Mary's crackers for a while.
I did it all too. All those corn-based products. Anyway, when they're heavily baked, no matter what, they don't have to be dipped in any oil. They're just baked. And these high temperatures, they get a coating on them called acrylamide that is literally plastic. So we already, do you know the numbers, Lori? How much plastic is in our bloodstream and body right now? I mean, it's in umbilical cords of babies. Do you know?
I don't have the percentages right in front of me, but
But
I
it's
know
high.
that it's
It's high.
high, and I know that they said it's gonna take forever to get it out of
Ever.
our bodies. There is, and I just want to throw that out for, the listeners. Again, the number is 385-899-2134. I mean, I know we're kind of talking about the poisons in these foods, but there are solutions. They are solutions on getting Suzanne's book, which is so cost effective. Suzanne, how much is your book?
Well, right now we had a special on it for $9.99. I think you can still get it for that, but I think you have to click something. I don't know. My VA was telling me that as you have to know where to look, but it's $19.99, and it's only 20
And there's a wealth of information that took you a year to do the
years.
research.
Years, and
Yes.
I just added 3 new pages. So if you do know of me and you've gotten the old one pre 2024, I added a bunch of new information and I distilled it and simplified it. But a lot of people ask me all the time, Suzanne, what do you do? Well, I have at Your Wellness Designer Instagram page, I do post a lot of my foods and I post what I do. Like, I don't drink these. I don't drink boxed milks. I am gluten sensitive, dairy sensitive. And so I only have 2 products that I recommend. There might be more in your area, but all it is a nut, water, and maybe some salt. And
Right.
this particular product has the number
Oat Lily is the name of the product she's talking about now.
And here's the other thing, you guys. This is what all your coffee shops are using. There isn't a safe product that they have that is not full of industrial seed oils, is not full of sugar, is not full of all those gums that I told you gunk up your digestion.
What's the seed oil that's in that Oatly
Funny
product?
enough, this one is low uric acid rapeseed oil. Now, rapeseed oil it's interesting. They're trying to trick you because it is a form of canola oil. Because the rapeseed, Lori, that was originally, was it a plant that was, I forget how canola oil was. Canola was a made up name, but I think it comes from the rapeseed oil. So that's what these companies are doing. The verdict is out, or the cat's out of the bag, that these oils are dangerous. And so their companies are paying attention, but they're trading it for just something as equally insidious like rapeseed oil. Even palm oil, you need to be careful. Palm oil is a healthy oil, but it has to be sustainably harvested,
Right.
grown, and it's not at the levels that they're trying to use it. And coconut oil is another good one, but again, same sort of thing. You got to know your sources. But the other one that's come out right now is rice bran oil. I went to a local place and said, "Oh, we're using rice bran oil," and I looked at them and I'm like, are you saying that that's healthy? Because do you know how many people have rice allergies? And again,
I do.
Oh, yes, I know you do. Rice and corn and oat and soy and wheat, all of those, you guys, are full of lectins. So don't forget, lectins are in beans. Those are the things that are the seed shell on the outside of your nuts, on the outside of your beans, on the outside of a lot of these wheat and corn products that wreck your gut because they are not meant to be eaten. And
so let me ask you a question, because I know there's mixed controversies like on beans. There is some nutritional value for, let's say, our vegans and our vegetarians.
Right.
Is there like a particular bean that you like? And we won't even talk about garbanzo beans because we know that they're toxic, even when they're organic. And let's just face it, even organic isn't clean enough anymore. Regenerative farming is the way that these farmers are going. But is there a particular bean for the vegans and the vegetarians?
First of all, why are garbanzo beans bad? Because they're the one few food that I enjoy. However, my stomach is a wreck when I eat them. I cannot do beans. Even if you soak them for days, put salt in them, you put vinegar in them, they don't agree with my system. And no, I do not have a bean that I recommend. Even remember, what was my other bean that I liked? Oh, pea protein. pea protein's a big one you see in a lot of it's a lot of ingredient. It's in a lot of
Yeah,
ingredients, and it's also in a lot of powders for um,
plant for
protein
powders.
protein powders, and it's not benign either. So peas also are a very, I have issues with my gut still. I have to be very careful. My stomach, that's a whole nother conversation, is why is my stomach still giving me issues? I'm 60, I'm eating well, I'm doing all this right. Well, hello, I spent.
You look awesome for 60, by the way. I gotta tell you.
Thanks, sweetie. You do too. And you're not 60 yet, are you?
Yes.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yes.
Well, welcome to the 60s club, right, Suze?
Yeah.
I would say that I spent 40 years of harming my body. 40 years, you guys. It's not going to happen overnight where you are just miraculously healed by the damage that was done to my gut, because I had holes literally in my gut lining because I had antibiotics and I had foods I was eating and I had toxins in my body. So you have to understand that in medications that it's taken some time to heal this baby. And I'm really proud that I've been able to and do as well as I have. Anyway, where were we? We were talking about beans.
And you know what? That's a really good point. And you just have to let me know like how much time that you have. Obviously, it's recorded. You can catch it on our Rumble channel. We'll be sending it over to you, so you put it on your YouTube channel. You can go to Main Street Media Live and watch it. So you let me know when you're ready to wrap up.
I'm good. I'm good. If you've got the time,
I've got the time, because I think this is the time to get the information out there.
Yeah. No, I'm good. My 5:00 live with LifeWave that I was going to do has been rescheduled. So what I was just going to mention about beans, there is a specialist. I can't reach his book right now, but his name is Chris Presser, and he's a functional medicine specialist. I remember years ago, I went to a health retreat, and he was the speaker. And the first thing I did, I got a lot of friends after this question I asked. People came up to me and said, "Thank you for asking that. I was too embarrassed to." But I said, "What are your thoughts on beans?" Because he's paleo trained. Everything is about paleo eating. So you're not eating a lot of carbs, and beans are a carb. And he said that beans are on that, they're on that peripheral, or they're kind of like, there's a fine line. Some of us, our genetics are meant to be able to eat some of these foods. We have stronger guts. But he says most of us don't. Beans are a relatively, I guess, young food in the history of our ancestral eating. And he says that it may take decades and generations before we're able to eat them holistically and well. But my concern is, Lori, is they're full of lectins again. And people that are vegan or vegetarian, they're consuming mass quantities of those. And from what I hear from all the nutritionists and specialists I work with and have worked with decades of people now, that their most unhealthy people are vegans. And because they are using other substitutions to get the nutrients that they need because they're hungry all the time.
Right.
And
they're not getting the amino acids that they need to feed their brain, because it feeds the brain. Yeah, exactly. And then we go back to the uptick in mental health, and then their doctors don't know, and they're not searching root cause. Yeah. I mean, even if your ebook could be in the hands of every health practitioner, just one copy of every health practitioner, think of the number of patients.
They won't do it.
No.
I have taken them to dozens of doctors' offices, you guys. I have left off my poisoned copy of my ebook. I told what my mission is. I said, I'll give you a percentage. I'm only charging $20 for these. For all of your clients, I'll split the commission with you. I'll give it to you. These people need this. They said, no, thank you. I can't tell you how many doctors I walked out. I said, you won't even talk to me about it. I even left a letter and said, I would love to know, flip over on the backside and tell me what your reason is for not collaborating with me or joining me on this crusade of education.
Silence. Suzanne, I have an email question here.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody that is asking, why do you believe that lectins are bad?
Well, the main thing about them, as I just said, is they're not they're the shell of a lot of these products that everybody's eating so much of are not processed properly. So let's just say that if you are eating beans, they need to be soaked properly. Nuts need to be soaked properly. The worst one, Lori, is wheat, which is in flour. Now think about all the bread that we eat so much of. If the person who called in is a big bread eater and you don't have a gluten sensitivity.
You mean the donut eaters, the bagel eaters, the pizza crust eaters? The
Okay,
Subway eaters with the bread?
think about that wheat that is probably not organic and it has been sprayed to hell and gone with glyphosate. It has been fertilized. It has been all those things Lori and I just talked about. It has been processed to the point of oblivion. Flour is useless. There's nothing healthy about flour. If you want to argue that with me, you can. It is the bread of substance. Evidently bread and wine is yada, yada. We know all of that. We're eating it in mass quantities and we are not prepping it properly. So our ancestors took 3 days or longer to ferment and get a starter for sourdough bread. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but you can make sourdough bread. That's evidently a healthier bread because
Right.
it's been fermented, which means that the terrible lectins have been broken down. The whole point, you guys, about this food, it's not being prepared properly. So we are rushing it all. Look at the bread aisles. Oh my God, go to Costco, go to Sam's Club, any of those. They're a good 20-foot long aisles of bread alone that
Oh
makes
my God, you have 27 choices of hamburger buns. When you go into there to look, you have a
look at the
barbecue and it's
ingredients.
just like,
The ingredients are this long on all of the
yes,
hamburger buns. So that's my reason about lectins that are so dangerous. Now, lectins also, go Google Dr. Stephen Gundry,
yes,
a huge lectin buster. He was
yes.
obese. He was chronically tired. He was doing surgeries. He was an open heart surgery guy.
He was obese himself.
Yes, yes. And when he learned what the blue zone was doing, which is where he was working and living,
Right.
he realized these healthy people that live on, Mediterranean diets and they eat lots of good oils and butter. They eat lots of fats, healthy fats, fish, lean chicken, lean meats, and, good vegetables. And that's it. And so that's my problem is we are not putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Remember, this is chronic illness we have going on right now. We're at an all-time high of mental health issues. Again, Dr. Amen says that, I wish I could remember his quote, Lori. He's on Instagram and he's Daniel Amen, for anybody who wants to know who we're talking about. He says that the amount of medication that's being prescribed to these young people in their 20s is incomprehensible. And the parents are allowing it. And the parents are
Yes.
allowing it because the insurance is paying for it and they don't know what else to do. So the parents are probably eating the same bad foods. They're feeding the kids the same bad foods. They're not putting.
Well, we know that because we look at families.
Yeah.
And they just don't know, which goes down, it comes back to what we're trying to do and educate. But parents need to be an example for their children because there are cost-effective ways to feed your family with good, clean food. And even if they just move over to organic on the dirty dozen,
Right.
that's a step in the right direction. Even if they just pick one food that they're going to buy organic.
Well, that's true, Lori, because I don't even really go down the organic road with some of my clients. If they take all these foods out and put them on their table and they say, this is all these bad ingredients, what I do with them, I can't even say donate them. They're so bad. I don't even want homeless people eating them because they're already, eating bad stuff and already in a situation where they're mentally, challenged. But I just talk to them about non-GMO and going to the stores and staying out of cans and bottles and plastics. Stop
Right.
buying processed food. Stay on the perimeter. You've heard this over and over. Perimeter.
Does that mean my husband can't eat glyphosate pizza when he goes to a birthday party?
No, he can't because you're responsible. Okay, here's my answer to that. People think that they are a lone island and they say, you can't tell me what to eat. I can do what I want, right? Yes. It's a free world, free country. But what happens when you get sick? Who's going to take care of you? What happens when you end up in the hospital with a debilitating disorder? What happens when you have open heart surgery like my mother, which my mother did? My father kept my mother alive, put him in the hospital because he was so stressed out trying to take care of her when we told him, don't take mom home. She needs help. This is not about just you anymore. It's about us. It's about a society that needs to be responsible for their actions. So I don't buy it anymore. If somebody tells me, stop telling me what to eat, stop telling me what to do, I'm going to say, are you living by yourself so that when you do have an issue, you're going to be on your own? Nobody's going to help you? You're on your own. And they go, well, no, you are, because we've been, it could be your spouse. And you're like, but that's not fair. I'm giving you the information. Read it. Here it is. And you're still saying, nope, I want my glyphosate pizza. I want to drink beer that's full of glyphosate. I want to drink wine because it soothes my anxiety. I want to eat sugar because I'm addicted to it. I want to drink coffee because my brain needs it. Otherwise, I can't function. At some point, when are we going to be responsible for our actions? And
Agreed.
that's where we
And
are.
And you know what? I always listen, like you said, everybody's got free will. We've had free will going all the way back to the beginning of the Bible where Adam and Eve, like they did their first sin. But now it's microdosing poison
Right.
because the poison in today's world is way more toxic than it was with our grandparents and our great grandparents. Why? Because we know that these plants that the farmers are growing, all these seeds, they're not only sprayed with one dose of Roundup, glyphosate, 2,4-D, glufosinate, Liberty, and a whole host of other herbicides that are toxic, cancer causing.
Yep.
Most of them owned by Bayer Monsanto now. But we take a look at it and we have become a generation where we microdose poison, thinking that our bodies are able to eliminate it's just one time, just like, I'm sorry, like a cocaine user or an alcoholic who, listen, I'm a certified Dr. Brain Amen coach. I would never tell one of my clients who is a recovering addict, a recovering alcoholic, it's okay to have one alcoholic beverage a week or one line of cocaine, or it's okay to smoke one joint. Why? Because it comes back to we're microdosing more poison in today's world than we were. They spray Roundup, glyphosate twice a year. They spray it to dry the harvest out. They spray it in the springtime to prep everything. And in between the spring and the fall, they're spraying other chemicals and herbicides, and the crop is horrible. I mean, look at the stuff that we just watched a movie the other day by Gabe Brown. Gabe Brown was a conventional farmer. He is now one of the largest regenerative farmers in the United States. And I want to say his movie was called Seed to Soil, but I'll look that up. It's on Netflix right now. He was a conventional farmer and he's sick, but he was a conventional farmer spraying all of this stuff. And he was about to lose everything he had on his farm. Why? Because his soil was toxic. His soil was dirt. There was no nutritional value in there. So he went back to President Jefferson and started reading some of his notes on what they were doing, because he was in a Dust Bowl effect back in the late 1920s, early 1930s. The dirt was so sick, they called it the Great Dust Bowl in the Midwest. So he started doing research, and he went from the conventional spraying produce with all of his seeds, from spraying these toxic chemicals that are going out to feed the population, to doing everything regeneratively. He quit tilling the soil because it was also killing and destroying the nutrients in the soil, and now uses nothing. And he has the largest regenerative farmland that has healthy soils, and he can pick up soil and you can see the amount of earthworms in his soil, which that's how healthy it is. So, and we'll spend the last few minutes. I want to talk about, the movie was Kiss the Ground on Netflix, and Woody Harrelson, and it is a must-watch movie before it leaves Netflix. And it shows how the foods really have become toxic over time, how we're microdosing this poison.
Yeah.
I look at food. My kids like to call me like a food Nazi. My husband likes to call me a food Nazi. But I look at myself that when, listen, I'm a believer. And I say that my body is God's temple.
Right.
God did not create Roundup. He did not create glyphosate. He did not create GMO foods. He gave us a whole forest of foods. He didn't give us all the seed oils that you talk about, the poisons in the pantry, all the manufacturing BS that, big ag and big government are trying to harm our bodies with. Yep. And you have to start learning to treat your body as God's temple. And even if you're not a believer, if you just believe in a higher power And Suzanne, we have a caller that Leighton's going to bring in. Even if you have a higher power, you have to just give it over and quit microdosing the poison. But we do have a caller that Leighton's going to bring in. And Leighton, we're ready whenever you are.
All right, sorry about that. My computer's being a bit slow there, but all right, we have a caller. You are live with the Wellness Crusaders. Lori, Suzanne, our caller is here. I'll let you guys talk.
Okay, and what answer can we give you? Or what question do you have? Hi there.
Hi. We were talking about the earthworms, and I was walking the other day, and I noticed that there were not worms on the ground after it had rained. So I've seen, so can you tell me more why the earthworms are important for soil, and what that means that I wasn't seeing any, and that I'm not seeing any every time it rains?
Suzanne, do you want to take that? Do you want me to answer it?
Well, I mean, I just know that earthworms are they're the mulch and they're the ones that feed our soil and keep it clean from toxins and debris, and it's kind of part of the regenerative health of our soil. So earthworms mean that your soil is alive and well, otherwise they would be dead because they'd be eating toxins. It's something like that.
Yeah, so there is a lot so in the soil, you've got so the body has the microbiome, but the soil also has all of the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. So when you look at, we'll just say plants that are growing, they absorb their nutrients through the soil. To absorb to absorb those nutrients through what they call a pathway, which is called the shikimate pathway. And the earthworms regenerate the soil so that there is more good bacteria so that the soil can thrive. And if you think about it, I mean, even when we were younger, we would play in the dirt, and you could put soil under a microscope and you can see the little tiny organisms, the good organisms that are growing in the soil and regenerating the soil.
Right.
And when you see the earthworms are attracted to healthy soil because they need that type of bacteria in the soil. So if you're not seeing the earthworms, you've got dirt. And your dirt is deficient in the microorganisms that bring the soil alive. It needs the carbon, but they're tilling the soil and they're spraying the poison. And what happens is that all the carbon, which they say, hey, listen, let's get rid of all the cows because it's changing the climate, which is a bunch of BS. I'm sorry. But what happens is the dirt, and then they till the soil and all the carbon goes back up into the air, and the microorganisms can't survive down there. So then the soil is toxic dirt. That means that whatever the farmer is growing, if the farmer can grow anything, we go back to Gabe Brown, and Leighton just put up the little image of Kiss the Ground, Woody Harrelson. That is a must-watch movie because it really explains why the soil needs the microorganisms. And once you revive the microorganism by being a regenerative farmer, going out there and playing, in the dirt and putting back into the soil what the soil needs, then the root system for all of these plants can thrive. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's incredible. So it reminds me a lot of what's happening in our gut bacteria, that if we're killing the surface, the bacteria is not residing in there either.
Exactly.
And if you heard Suzanne in the beginning talk about when she was a child, and then she was sick as a child, she was sick at a teen, and antibiotics were, the answer that they thought back then. but it also kills the microbiota in the gut. And, you know, there are tests that you can do to see how healthy your microbiome is. And what we are seeing when we do this testing in stool is that there is a deficiency in the good bacteria in the gut. So you think of it as weeds versus flowers in our gut. We can water the flowers, but even when we start watering the flowers too much, and you know, we go to probiotics, there is no one probiotic that fits all. Why? Because we have trillions and trillions of bacteria. But you can also feed the good bacteria. But when all you're doing is you're watering the weeds, your gut becomes just a garden of a mess filled with these weeds that harm your immune system, which we go back to the mental health problems that we have, the gut digestive problems we have. And we know that the brain and the gut is connected. It's called the HPA axis. We know that your brain is consuming them. We go back to these emotional issues. Root cause is not something that conventional medicine discusses, mostly because listen, I get it. These doctors come out with big debt. They don't have time. They're seeing patients 5 minutes, 7 minutes. I'm sorry, it's the truth. You know, they don't have time. When they get home from work, they're exhausted. They have big loans to pay off. But you look at the soil in the ground is the same way that you look at the soil in the gut, which goes back to my kids saying, oh my gosh, you're a food Nazi. I am a food Nazi. Because you know what? I want to live long and die short, not live short and die long. And I hope that answered your question. I would highly recommend watching the movie by Woody Harrelson called Kiss the Ground. And that will 100% explain why the worms, why there's such an advantage, why feeding the soil is so important to human health. And Suzanne,
Hey, Lori,
yes.
Can I just add on to that? Because it was a perfect segue from the earthworms, you know, keeping our soil healthy. When we are eating these seed oils and this sugar and all these chemicals we just talked about, it is wrecking your digestive enzymes and your acid that is needed and is necessary to not only digest your food, but for you to absorb it. So this is the key takeaway. If you don't remember anything from this, it's wrecking your gut. When it's wrecking your gut, it's causing chronic illnesses. When it's causing chronic illnesses, it's affecting the brain. So we have to keep our brain, if nothing else about this again, is you've got to keep your brain healthy, because Alzheimer's and dementia is on the rise, you guys. It's starting younger and younger. They're saying as early as 40, some people are going to be getting it.
And they say that you know that you have onset of dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's 20 years before you are even diagnosed. And that is the crap food. I'm sorry, the crap beer, the crap stuff that people are feeding their gut, which is feeding their brain, which is feeding systemic inflammation. And it's when systemic inflammation crosses over to chronic inflammation, guess what? It's a prescription pad medicine.
Yeah. And I like to say that at the expense of your illness, people that are listening, the industries are making billions off of you. So if you can at least stop buying these products, they're going to go away. And I'm seeing it on the shelves, Lori. They're already making modifications, and companies are either going away, which is my hope, like Coca-Cola's, you know, the cigarette companies, that's a whole nother conversation. But all these soda drinks, there's so many new sodas out there, all in plastic bottles, if you've noticed, and they're full of junk. And you just need good, clean water. Stop drinking that stuff. Stop buying that stuff.
Right.
Anyway.
And as we wrap up, because I want people to know how they find you. You talk about the plastic bottles. We're now seeing, like I just saw Dasani water in an aluminum, and that's a whole topic of another.
Worse.
Yeah, because aluminum is so toxic to the brain. But although in the beginning, I read our disclaimers that we are not here to assess micro and macronutrient levels. But all of us you can consult with us. Each and every one of us in the Wellness Crusaders, we have complimentary consultations. So we can provide you with the information to get you started, even though we don't provide recommendations such as different types of amino acids. We do talk about amino acids. We do talk about toxic foods. We don't necessarily dive into that on our program. Again, we're not here to replace your psychiatrist, replace your psychologist, replace your nutritionist, replace your dietitian. But you have to ask yourself, does your doctor, does your nutritionist, does your psychiatrist, does your psychologist, do they get to root cause? And if your answer is no, you need to reach out by sending us an email at info@TheWellnessCrusaders.com. That will also, Suzanne will be getting those emails. But Suzanne, I want to give you the final word. And then I want you to tell our listeners, how do they get a hold of you? Because I'm looking forward to next month when we can dive a little deeper into this.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Lori. And thank you for those of you listening. So I actually have a website where you can find all of my information and more about me. And it's called secretstoRadiantHealth.com. And I also am going to be having a new Facebook page where I'm going to be doing kind of similar things where Lori will get to come on and talk with me. But it's going to be a forum where we can ask, you'll have access to us. Like we love actually having people to be able to talk to us and ask questions. But I'm on Instagram at Your Wellness Designer. And there I have all of my ebooks, both and some of the other things that I represent and who I am and what I do. And I do give a lot of free information on my Instagram, so you can find recipes, and I'm always there, promoting good health. So that's where you can find me. And the Poisons in the Pantry, I have a free guide. And then, as I said, the upgrade.
The free guide, just so that everybody heard it, she does have like a free entry level.
Yes.
And then you can just upgrade to the fabulous paid for only $20.
And I think you can probably still get it for $9.99 if you know how to do it. I'm talking to my virtual assistant in the morning. He's going to clarify it for me. But either way, if you need it for $9.99, I can always get it to you.
And you can email us, and we will get that information right over to you. Again, our email is info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. If you can't find it, you can email Suzanne, and we'll get that information over.
Yeah, srpdesigner@gmail.com. It's all on my website, Secrets to Radiant Health. But what the free guide is, the number one poison to remove from your pantry, and it's ironic, it is seed oils. And it's 4 pages, and it goes into all that we talked about today, and it's going to give you alternatives. The last page is all of I'm really good about solutions. So I'm not just somebody who tells you to change your diet and walk away. People that work with me have all my recipes. They get a lot of hand holding. Lori and I both are passionate about this. We're doing it because we don't want to see people suffer anymore. And I don't want to see people suffer the way I did. And Lori's got her reasons too. She just we are so passionate about, people say we want to save the world. We really want to save the planet. A lot of this is just helping our planet. So when you make these good choices, you're helping the planet and you're helping our world. So, and those around you, remember, you're not a lone island. So that's, Lori, I really hope we can touch on some of these other things. I had a lot more things to talk about. You do too. But I really enjoyed this conversation. And I hope the folks out there will pick up even toothpaste. Hello, you need to be looking at some of these ingredients because they're not benign either in some of these so-called healthy toothpaste, everything from, drinks to cereals to cookies to bread. Please start reading ingredients. And if you don't know how, get the ebook. I give you all of those ingredients. It's very simple.
That is a great way to wrap up. Suzanne, thank you so much. I'm always honored to have these talks with you, these calls. We're equally as passionate. We equally bounce stuff off of each other, and I'm really honored. So thank you. Thank you for today. And I hope the rest of your evening is blessed and beautiful, and that Chris eats as healthy as I see you cook all the time. He's a lucky man.
Thank you, Lori. Likewise with your honey. But appreciate it and look forward to talking to you again, Lori.
All right. Ciao for now.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everybody.